carefree together that it does seem a shame. You ladies with your fancy hairdos, what do you know about beauty?
I had to learn how to survive. And I think that's where that desire comes from. I never want to be a burden on anyone, not even to my children.
What did Eartha Kitt say in her last interview? Why did her words shock many people? Eartha Kitt was known for being honest and bold, but her final words left people stunned.
Been an angel all year, Santa honey, and hurry down the chimney tonight.
What was she thinking when she spoke about her life, career, and the world? Did she share any secrets or truths that no one expected? Let's dive into what made her last interview so unforgettable.
I was scared to death to do anything like getting into show business because I was brought up rather strictly in a cotton field in South Carolina.
Eartha Mae Keith was born on January 17, 1927, in a small town called North in South Carolina. Her life didn't start easy. Her mother, Annie Mae Keith, was of Cherokee and African descent. Eartha didn't know much about her father. Some say he was the son of the man who owned the plantation where Eartha was born, and sadly, she was conceived through a terrible act. A biography in 2013 suggested her father was a local doctor named Daniel Sturkey, but Eartha's daughter, Kit McDonald Shapiro, wasn't sure that was true.
I was afraid always to exercise my feelings about anything because I thought I would be get my face slapped or something like that, or a little slap on my derriere.
Eartha's childhood was full of struggles. After her mother started living with a man who didn't accept Eartha because her skin was lighter, Eartha had to move in with a relative named Aunt Rosa. Life there was hard and Eartha faced abuse. Later, when her mother passed away, Eartha went to live with another relative, Mamie Kitt. Eartha believed Mamie might have been her real mother.
So she brought me up north, my aunt, and she told me she was my mother. So I'm very confused about the whole thing.
Eartha's life changed when she moved to Harlem, New York. She went to the Metropolitan Vocational High School, which later became the famous High School of Performing Arts. This school helped her explore her talents. Her career started in 1943 when she joined the Katherine Dunham Company, a dance group. She stayed with the group until 1948. This experience gave her the confidence to perform on bigger stages. She wasn't just a dancer, she was an amazing singer with a voice that people couldn't forget. She sang many popular songs like Let's Do It, C'est Si Bon, and Santa Baby, which became her most famous song in 1953. Eartha's unique style and voice made her stand out. She became fluent in French while performing in Europe, and even learned to sing in 11 different languages. Her ability to connect with audiences from all over the world made her performances special.
So they knew about my work in America among the inner city kids. So that's why I was invited to this luncheon.
Now when Kit was invited to the White House, it was a big moment for her, but things didn't go as she expected. She sat down with First Lady Lady Bird Johnson and other important people. However, what she said during the meeting caused trouble and changed her career. I mean, she had been working hard to help underprivileged children. She had helped kids in places like New York, Los Angeles, and Washington, D.C. She even started an organization called Kitsville to help those in need. At the time, she was also part of a group called Rebels with a Cause. This group worked to improve the poor areas in Washington, D.C. and bring attention to the poverty people were living in.
And I had been responsible for getting a building for a group called Rebels with a Cause in Washington.
So when she got an invitation, Eartha was excited about the opportunity. During the meeting at the White House, people were talking about how to fix the problems in America's cities, but she didn't agree with what they were saying. The women there suggested things like putting in bigger streetlights and flower pots on the windows to make the ghettos look nicer. To Eartha, these ideas didn't make any sense. Finally, she raised her hand and asked Mrs. Johnson a tough question. Eartha wanted to know if the reason so many young people were turning to crime and violence in the streets had anything to do with America's involvement in the Vietnam War. Eartha believed that the young men who were leaving America to avoid the war were angry because they didn't understand why they had to fight in a war that didn't seem right. She felt that the people in the White House weren't addressing the real issues.
They knew about my work in America among the inner city kids. So that's why I was invited to this luncheon. Why is there so much juvenile delinquency in the streets of America?
Eartha's words made the room very quiet. The other women at the lunch were afraid to speak out, but one of them whispered to Eartha, thanking her for saying what they all felt but were too scared to say. However, speaking out had consequences. Just 2 hours after the lunch, President Johnson allegedly made a call to stop Eartha from appearing on TV. This led to her being cut off from American media. She didn't know about it at the time, but later found out in 1975 when she saw a dossier, a secret file about her. The file showed that after Eartha's visit to the White House, her career was ruined. Shows stopped inviting her, and she couldn't get work in Hollywood anymore. In the years that followed, Kitt continued to speak her mind and fight for what she believed in. She was never afraid to stand up for the truth, even if it meant losing her career. She later found out that the CIA and FBI had been watching her. They had created a file about her because of her outspoken views.
I think that you are born with a certain kind of feeling within you, and either you are going to allow it to come out or you're going to suppress it.
She could only find work in Europe and Asia, which was a difficult and sad experience for her. Eartha loved her fans and felt like they were her family. So being banned from performing in front of them made her feel lonely and lost. But Eartha didn't give up. She returned to her first love, music. She took a supporting role in the Broadway musical Timbuktu. This wasn't as big a role as she was used to, but Eartha still shone. When she stepped on stage, the audience went wild with excitement. It was clear that Ertha Kitt still had what it took to wow a crowd. After many years away, America was finally ready to welcome Ertha Kitt back. Her performance in Timbuktu earned her a Tony nomination for Best Actress. Even more amazing, President Jimmy Carter invited her to the White House. He apologized for how she had been treated and told her, "Welcome home."
I wanted to survive on my own without having anyone be so responsible for me that I have to go to them and ask them for a piece of bread.
Kitt's ostensibly mixed-race origins put her at odds with her family. When her mother moved in with another black man, he demanded that little Eartha stay away, saying that he didn't want to yell a child. Kitt's mother actually agreed with her new boo and shuttled her own daughter away to her sister Rosa. Tragically, Eartha soon realized that living with Aunt Rosa was a waking nightmare.
And I thought, oh, this is something I'd like to do.
During her time at Aunt Rosa's farm, Eartha felt like a working mule. She said her aunt used her as laborer, forcing her to wear scratchy, dirty potato sacks and making her pick cotton all day. Then, in another heinous twist, Eartha learned that her cousins were no kinder than her aunt. The boy and girl would tie Eartha to a tree and whip her. They also sexually abused her. In short, life at Aunt Rosa's farm was miserable. Eventually, Eartha escaped her cruel relatives, but her path to freedom came at a heartbreakingly high cost. In 1935, Kitt's mother suddenly fell ill. The family rushed Eartha to her mother's deathbed so she could say goodbye, only for Eartha to actually see her mother die. She was just 8 years old at the time. Looking back, Kitt says this experience traumatized her, especially considering how her mother's demise was far from peaceful. The suddenness of the illness and her mother's intense pain actually led Kitt to believe her mother was poisoned.
I had to learn how to survive. And I think that's where that desire comes from. I never want to be a burden on anyone, not even to my children.
Eartha was passed from one bad home to another. After the death of her mother, she refused to go back to her aunt's place. So Aunt Marnie stepped in and brought her to Harlem, New York City. From the outside, it looked like things might get better. Harlem was exciting, and Eartha had dreams of pursuing the arts. But dreams don't always match reality. Eartha worked in a sewing factory to help make ends meet. Aunt Marnie, like others before her, was mean to Eartha. She abused the young girl so much that Eartha chose to run away. Life on the streets was better than staying in that home. Homeless and alone, she rode subways all night to stay warm. When the train stopped, she slept on rooftops. It was a scary and sad time, but Eartha never gave up. Looking back, she didn't dwell on the pain. She focused on what those struggles taught her. She once said, "I've used all the manure that's been thrown on me as fertilizer." She turned her pain into strength. Eartha's big break came by chance. One day, she helped a woman who asked for directions. That woman was a dancer with the Katherine Dunham Collective, a famous African-American dance company. She told Eartha to try out for the group. Eartha took the advice, auditioned, and won a full scholarship to the dance school. This was a turning point in her life. By her teenage years, Eartha was touring the world. She danced across Europe and South America, and her talent began to shine. People couldn't help but notice her charisma and beauty. In the 1940s, Eartha officially began her entertainment career with the Katherine Dunham Company, making history as part of the first African-American modern dance company. But her charm didn't stop there. She soon traveled to Paris, where her life took another exciting turn. In Paris, Eartha caught the eye of Orson Welles, one of Hollywood's biggest stars. Welles was so impressed with her that he cast her as Helen of Troy, the most beautiful woman in history, in his production of Dr. Faustus. When she asked why he chose her, Welles gave her a simple yet unforgettable answer. "You are the most exciting woman in the world." Eartha's relationship with Welles wasn't just professional. They grew close off stage too, and their connection became legendary.
I'm simply amazed at my whole life. Are you kidding? Because I've had more fun being Eartha Kitt, I think, than anybody has had being themselves, whomever they have become.
Well, that became one of the most surprising things she shared in her autobiography. I am talking about her brief affair with Orson Welles. Although they had a passionate connection, the two never took their relationship to the next level. Eartha said, "The most exciting men in my life have been the men who have never taken me to bed," meaning that sometimes the excitement came from the feelings and the mystery, not just physical attraction. Even though she and Welles never became lovers, Eartha spoke about him fondly for the rest of her life. Their time together during the stage play Dr. Faustus was filled with intense emotions. Eartha received glowing reviews for her performance, which made Welles feel jealous. Sometimes he would use his big frame to block the audience's view of her. But one night, things went too far. In a scene where they were supposed to kiss, Welles bit Eartha's lip so hard that it started to bleed. But she didn't stop the performance, and the audience could see the blood dripping from her lip. Despite the pain, she carried on, showing how strong and dedicated she was to her craft. Eartha Kitt was no stranger to scandal, especially in the 1950s. In 1950, she performed at one of Paris's most famous lesbian nightclubs. She did a solo act where she played a woman named Fred, who dressed as a man. It was a big deal at the time, but she was unbothered by the controversy. People came to watch because they were curious about her, and her strong performance caught their attention. However, not everything Eartha did was successful. In 1951, she returned to New York City after her time in Europe, hoping to bring her act there. Unfortunately, her performance didn't go as planned. Critics agreed that while Eartha had a lot of confidence, her singing and dancing were not as good as they should have been. This was a hard blow for her, who had already faced challenges in her personal life.
I like this country very much. I know we have our problems, but I think running away from the problems isn't going to solve anything.
Eartha also faced challenges because of the way she looked and who she was. One of the most heartbreaking moments in her life happened when she was with James Dean, the famous actor. Eartha recalled a time when Dean drove her around in his Porsche Spider. While they were driving, she suddenly felt scared and told him, "Jamie, I don't like this car. It's going to kill you." Sadly, she was right. James Dean died in a car crash in 1955, and Eartha couldn't stop feeling emotional every time she talked about it, even years later. But the heartbreak didn't stop there for Eartha. Before James Dean's tragic death, she had fallen deeply in love with Arthur Lowe Jr., the son of the family that owned Paramount Studios. They both loved each other and talked about getting married. But when they did, something changed. Arthur's mother didn't want him to marry a woman who wasn't fully white. Eartha believed this was the reason their relationship ended, and it hurt her deeply. She once said, "I wish he was the father of my child," showing just how much she had loved him.
So carefree together that it does seem a shame.
Eartha had to deal with prejudice from all sides. White people sometimes thought she was too black, and black people thought she wasn't black enough. For example, when she starred in a film with Sammy Davis Jr., many theaters refused to show the movie. Eartha said they thought she wasn't black enough to be in a romantic scene with a black man. Sadly, even some of her own friends and lovers treated her badly because of the way she looked. Eartha revealed that she once had a short romance with famous singer Harry Belafonte. But after they slept together, Belafonte got up and said to her, "I don't want you to take this seriously. No black woman can do anything for me." This hurt her deeply, and it wasn't the only time something like that happened. She also tried to date famous men like Sidney Poitier, but they rejected her because they usually dated white women.
You ladies with your fancy hairdos, what do you know about beauty?
Kitt most talked about parts of her romantic history happened during the filming of St. Louis Blues, where she worked with the famous singer and actor Nat King Cole. They quickly started to flirt with each other. There was just one problem. Cole was already married. Despite that, Eartha and Nat stayed in touch. She even flew to Los Angeles to help him with a television show. But when Cole's wife found out, she was furious. To thank Eartha for her help with his show, Nat sent her an overwhelming number of red roses. The roses filled every surface in her hotel room. He also sent a note saying how happy he was to have met her. It wasn't long before his wife caught on and wrote Eartha a letter. The letter was sharp and to the point. "I don't know if you think of yourself as some kind of temptress siren, but the film is over and Gogo's gone. Let's leave it that way." However, after many brief romances, Eartha finally thought she had found lasting love in 1960 with a man named Bill McDonald. Eartha and Bill got married and were very happy at first. But things soon took a sad turn. In 1961, they had a baby girl, but their happiness didn't last long. Bill had been badly hurt in the Korean War, and the pain and trauma from his injuries led him to become addicted to opioids. This took a toll on their marriage, and by 1964, they decided to divorce. Despite the struggles in her personal life, Eartha Kitt didn't stop fighting for what she believed in. In the 1960s, she became very active in politics, fighting for social change. She started a nonprofit organization and led a group in Washington, D.C. called Rebels with a Cause to help underprivileged children. Eartha worked hard to make the world a better place for those in need. Unfortunately, her actions didn't always have the results she hoped for, and sometimes her good intentions had unexpected consequences.
If you go away, if you go away.
In 1967, Ertha Kitt stepped into the role of Catwoman on the Batman TV show after Julie Newmar left. This was a groundbreaking role for Kitt because it was a powerful and confident character, different from the typical roles given to black women at the time. Instead of playing a stereotypical role like a servant or seductress, Kitt's Catwoman was strong, smart, and independent. But prejudice still played a huge part in her career. When she played Catwoman, the romantic tension between her and Batman had to be toned down because of the time's views on interracial relationships. This was a major setback for Kitt, who was already facing challenges in Hollywood because of her race. Kitt later became a vocal advocate for LGBT rights and publicly supported same-sex marriage, which she considered a civil right. She had been quoted as saying, "I supported gay marriage because we're asking for the same thing. If I have a partner and something happens to me, I want that partner to enjoy the benefits of what we have reaped together." It's a civil rights thing, isn't it? Kitt famously appeared at many LGBT fundraisers, including a mega event in Baltimore, Maryland, with George Burns and Jimmy James. Scott Sherman, an agent at Atlantic Entertainment Group, stated, "Eartha Kitt is fantastic, appears at so many LGBT events in support of civil rights." In a 1992 interview with Dr. Anthony Clare, Kitt spoke about her gay following, saying, "We're all rejected people. We know what it is to be refused. We know what it is to be oppressed, depressed, and then accused, and I am very much cognizant of that feeling. Nothing in the world is more painful than rejection. I am a rejected, oppressed person, and so I understand them as best as I can, even though I am a heterosexual." Sadly, Kitt died of colon cancer on Christmas Day 2008 at her home in Weston, Connecticut. She was 81 years old.
A family friend says singer, dancer, and actress Eartha Kitt died from colon cancer at the age of 81.
Her daughter, Kit McDonald, described her last days with her mother. "I was with her when she died. She left this world literally screaming at the top of her lungs. I was with her constantly. She lived not even 3 miles from my house. We were together practically every day. She was home for the last few weeks when the doctor told us there was nothing they could do anymore. Up until the last 2 days, she was still moving around. The doctor told us she will leave very quickly and her body will just start to shut down. But when she left the world with a bang. She left it how she lived it. She screamed her way out of here, literally. I truly believe her survival instincts were so part of her DNA that she was not going to go quietly or willingly. It was just the two of us hanging out during the last days. She was very funny. We didn't have to talk because I always knew how she felt about me. I was the love of her life, so the last part of her life, we didn't have to have these heart-to-heart talks. She started to see people that weren't there. She thought I could see them too, but of course I couldn't. I would make fun of her like, I'm going to go in the other room and you stay here and talk to your friends.
So carefree together that it does seem a shame.
One of the most surprising stories came from Jackie Harry, an actress who shared a funny but shocking memory in 2019. Jackie Harry opened up on Twitter about a time when Eartha Kitt slapped the F out of me. This happened after Kitt thought Harry was dating her boyfriend. Turns out Harry was seeing him, but she had no idea he was also involved with Kitt. It was a wild mix-up, but it showed just how bold and fierce Eartha Kitt could be when it came to protecting what she wanted. While Eartha Kitt was known for her fiery side, she also had a legendary career that made her unforgettable. She became famous for classic songs like Santa Baby, I Want to Be Evil, and Monotonous. Her voice was unique, and her style left an impact on the world of music. If you want to remember Eartha Kitt, listening to her songs and watching her interviews is a good place to start.